Something in your life quietly changed. Not outside, inside. The conversations stopped feeling right. The crowd started draining you. People you once laughed with could no longer walk beside you. And without any argument, without any goodbye, you were left alone. But listen carefully. Allah does not remove people randomly. He removes them strategically, because some paths are too sacred for company that only knows comfort. If you are walking alone right now, not because you failed, not because you became cold, but because your soul outgrew the noise, this is not loneliness. This is selection. Before Allah entrusts a servant with depth, He strips them of distraction. Before He gives them strength, He teaches them silence. Stay with me. These 7 reasons will explain why Allah closed your circle and why the ones He chooses. Always learn to walk alone first. Allah removes people before He raises you. When Allah intends to elevate a servant, He rarely begins by adding blessings that everyone can see. More often, He begins by removing what feels familiar and safe. This is why the first sign of being chosen is not applause, popularity, or comfort, but distance. Distance from people, from noise, from conversations that once felt normal but now feel empty. Allah knows that before your heart can carry higher responsibility, it must become lighter. And many people, even good people, add weight without realizing it. They bring expectations, comparisons, emotional demands, and subtle distractions that pull your attention away from Allah. These are not always harmful people, but they are not meant to walk with you into the next stage of your life. So Allah creates separation, not suddenly, not harshly, but quietly. Conversations fade, invitations stop, the bond weakens without a clear reason, and you are left confused, wondering why you feel alone, even though you did nothing wrong. But this loneliness is not a sign of rejection, it is preparation. Before Allah raised the hearts of His strongest servants, He first simplified their surroundings. He removed the unnecessary voices, so the most important voice could finally be heard. Because guidance does not descend into crowded hearts. Clarity does not settle where noise dominates. Allah wants your attention fully, not divided. Walking alone forces you to slow down. It forces you to reflect. It forces you to confront your intentions and ask yourself who you are when no one is watching and no one is praising you. In this quiet space, sincerity grows. Worship becomes deeper. Dua becomes more honest. The heart begins to depend on Allah rather than on people. This is why your circle became smaller, as your faith became stronger. Allah is protecting what He is building inside you. He is removing influences that would dilute your purpose before it fully forms. What feels like loss is actually alignment. What feels like isolation is actually refinement. Allah removes people not to empty your life, but to prepare it. He takes away what you lean on so you learn to stand firmly with Him alone. And once your heart is strong enough, once your connection with Allah is clear and unshaken, He will decide who deserves to walk beside you again. Until then, your loneliness is not a mistake. It is the first step of elevation. Allah trains His chosen ones in solitude. When Allah chooses a servant for a higher level, He does not train them in crowds. He does not allow them to grow dependent on applause, reassurance, or constant companionship. Instead, He places them in solitude, because solitude reveals what company hides. In isolation, there is nowhere to escape, no one to distract you, no one to absorb your pain or carry your confusion. You are left alone with your thoughts, your fears, your weaknesses, and most importantly, your relationship with Allah. This is not cruelty. This is training. Many people confuse loneliness with abandonment, but the truth is far deeper. Loneliness is the classroom where Allah teaches His chosen servants the hardest lessons. It is where patience is not spoken about, but lived. It is where reliance on Allah stops being a concept and becomes survival. When no one checks on you, when no one understands you, when no one validates your struggle, you begin to turn to Allah in a way comfort never taught you. Solitude exposes the cracks in your faith, so Allah can strengthen them. It strips away false confidence and replaces it with humility. It removes emotional dependence on people and replaces it with inner stability. You begin to realize how fragile human support truly is, and how constant Allah's presence has always been. In crowds, it is easy to feel strong because strength is borrowed. In solitude, strength must be built from within. This is why Allah places His chosen servants in seasons where they must stand alone. He wants them to become unshakable. He wants their faith to be rooted, not reactive. He wants them to remain steady even when no one is cheering and no one is watching. This training is painful because it feels unnatural. Humans are created to seek connection, so when Allah removes it, the heart protests. It asks why it has been singled out. It wonders why others seem surrounded while it feels forgotten. But Allah knows something the heart cannot yet see. He knows that the mission He is preparing you for cannot survive emotional dependence. Solitude teaches discipline. It teaches self-control. It teaches the ability to remain firm without external pressure or approval. It teaches you how to sit with discomfort without running toward distraction. It teaches you how to trust Allah when outcomes are unclear and answers are delayed. Over time, something powerful happens. The silence stops feeling empty. It starts feeling sacred. You begin to recognize Allah's presence in moments you once feared. You realize that being alone does not mean being unsupported. It means being directly supported by Allah without interference. This is why many chosen ones feel misunderstood, even by those closest to them. Allah is shaping them internally in ways words cannot explain. Their growth happens quietly, deeply, and slowly, away from eyes that would rush the process or misunderstand the pain. Solitude is not the end of the journey, it is the forge. And Allah only places His chosen servants in the fire when He knows they will emerge refined, not broken. If you are walking alone in this season, understand this clearly. Allah is not distant, He is close, training you in ways that comfort never could. This loneliness is not wasting your time. It is preparing your soul. Not everyone is meant to survive your transformation. One of the most painful realities Allah teaches His chosen ones is this: not everyone who starts the journey with you is meant to reach the destination with you. And this realization hurts more than loneliness itself, because it forces you to accept that separation is sometimes mercy, not cruelty. When Allah begins to transform a servant, the change does not stay hidden for long. Your values shift, your priorities deepen, your tolerance for meaningless talk decreases. Your heart starts craving purpose instead of pleasure, and without saying a word, you begin to outgrow rooms you once felt comfortable in. This is where tension appears, not because you became arrogant, but because growth makes people uncomfortable. Some will feel judged by your discipline, even if you never judge them. Some will feel exposed by your sincerity, even if you remain silent. Some will resent your restraint, because it reminds them of what they avoid within themselves. Allah sees this before you do. He sees who would envy you, who would drain you, who would secretly hope you stay small so they do not have to confront their own stagnation. So before these people damage your heart, Allah quietly creates distance, not with arguments, not with explosions, but with emotional gaps that slowly widen. You may wonder why certain people suddenly misunderstand you, why support turns into silence, why closeness turns into coldness. It feels unfair because you did nothing wrong. But the truth is, you changed direction, And not everyone was meant to walk that path. Allah does not allow His chosen ones to carry unnecessary emotional weight. Some people bring chaos disguised as companionship. Some bring doubt disguised as advice. Some bring fear disguised as concern. Allah removes them because the mission ahead requires clarity, not confusion. This separation is especially painful when it comes from people you love. Family, old friends, people who knew your past, because they remember who you were, not who Allah is shaping you to become. And instead of adjusting, they resist the change. They expect the old version of you to return so they can feel comfortable again. But Allah does not allow regression in those He has chosen. He protects the future version of you, even if it means disappointing the past version of others. This is why walking alone often feels heavier than walking with enemies. At least enemies are clear, but separation from familiar faces creates grief without closure. There are no final conversations, no clear endings, just distance, silence, and unanswered questions. Yet within this pain lies protection. Allah is shielding your heart from emotional sabotage. He is preventing people who cannot handle your growth from damaging your confidence, your faith, or your focus. He is ensuring that when you rise clean, without resentment, guilt, or divided loyalty. Over time, you begin to understand that Allah did not remove these people because they were evil. He removed them because they were incompatible with the direction your soul was heading. And compatibility matters when destiny is involved. Chosen ones are not allowed to be surrounded by everyone. They are surrounded only by those who can withstand the weight of their purpose. Until those people appear, Allah Himself fills the space. If you are walking alone and feeling misunderstood, remember this: Allah is not emptying your life. He is editing it. He is removing characters that no longer belong in the chapter He is writing next. And once this chapter is complete, you will look back and realize that every separation was an act of divine precision, not loss. Allah uses loneliness to break false dependence and create real tawakkul. One of the most difficult truths Allah teaches His chosen ones is that dependence on people, even good people, can quietly weaken the heart. As long as someone else is always there to reassure you, to carry you emotionally, to validate your decisions, your heart never fully learns what it means to rely on Allah alone. This is why Allah allows seasons where help disappears, not because He wants to see you suffer, but because He wants to see you stand. When the phone stops ringing, when no one checks in, when advice fades and encouragement becomes rare, something uncomfortable begins to happen inside you. You realize how much of your peace was tied to people instead of Allah. At first, this realization feels terrifying. The heart panics because it has lost what it leaned on. It asks questions. It feels exposed. It feels vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, many people collapse. But Allah does not place collapse upon His chosen ones. He places transformation. Loneliness forces you to turn inward and upward at the same time. You begin speaking to Allah not with rehearsed words, but with raw honesty. Your dupa becomes deeper because there is nowhere else to take your pain. Your prayers become longer because silence no longer scares you. You start waiting for Allah's response with patience instead of impatience, because you have learned that no one else can answer you the way He does. This is where Tawakkul is born, not the version spoken on tongues, but the version carved into the heart. Tawakkul that does not depend on outcomes, timelines, or reassurance. Tawakkul that remains steady even when doors stay closed longer than expected. Tawakkul that trusts Allah's wisdom even when emotions protest. Allah knows that the missions He gives His chosen servants require inner stability. They cannot afford to fall apart when people disappoint them. They cannot afford to lose direction when support fades. So Allah trains them early. He removes emotional crutches, so their faith muscles grow strong. During this phase, you may feel like Allah Himself is silent. But this silence is not absence. It is space. Space for your heart to mature. Space for your intentions to purify. Space for your trust to become unshakable. Allah is watching how you respond when comfort is removed, because this response determines what He entrusts you with next. Loneliness also teaches restraint. You stop running to people for every emotion. You stop explaining yourself unnecessarily. You stop seeking validation from those who cannot give it sincerely. You learn to carry yourself with dignity, knowing that Allah sees what others overlook. This lesson is painful because it breaks attachment. And breaking attachment always feels like loss before it feels like freedom. But slowly you begin to notice something powerful. Your peace becomes less fragile. Your emotions become more controlled. Your reactions become slower and wiser. You are no longer easily shaken by abandonment or misunderstanding. Allah has replaced fragile dependence with solid trust. He has taken away what could fail you and anchored you to what never will. This is why chosen ones often feel lonely even in rooms full of people. Their hearts no longer cling outward. Their security comes from a place others cannot touch. They have learned that Allah alone is enough, and that knowledge changes everything. If you are in this stage, understand this clearly. Allah is not emptying your life. He is strengthening your core. He is teaching you to stand firm without leaning on anything that can collapse. And once you master this level of tawakkul, nothing in this world will be able to break you easily again. Allah uses loneliness to purify your intentions and separate you from the world. At a certain stage in the journey of a chosen servant, Allah begins a process that is invisible to everyone except the heart experiencing it. This is the stage where loneliness is no longer just about people leaving or silence increasing, but about the internal separation between the servant and the world itself. Desires begin to weaken, attachments start losing their grip, and things that once felt important suddenly feel distant and small. This stage is difficult because it feels like you are losing interest in life while everyone else seems fully invested in it. Conversations about status, money, popularity, and entertainment stop exciting you. Goals that once motivated you feel hollow. Even achievements lose their sweetness, and this creates confusion because you begin to wonder if something is wrong with you. But in reality, something rare is happening. Allah is cleaning your heart. The heart cannot carry divine closeness while being overloaded with worldly attachment. So Allah slowly loosens your grip on the dunya, not by force but by loss of taste. What once distracted you no longer satisfies you. What once thrilled you now feels heavy. This is mercy disguised as emptiness. Loneliness plays a central role in this purification. When people are removed, you are left without mirrors that reflect your ego back to you. There is no one to impress, no one to compete with, no one to perform for. Your actions become quieter, simpler, and more sincere. You begin doing things because they are right, not because they are seen. This is where intention is tested at its deepest level. When no one is watching, when no one praises you, when no one even knows what you are struggling with, the heart reveals its truth. Are you still obedient when appreciation disappears? Do you still hold on to Allah when rewards feel delayed? Do you still choose patience when no one acknowledges your effort? Allah places His chosen servants in loneliness to answer these questions without words. He lets the world fade so sincerity can rise. Because intentions that survive isolation are intentions Allah trusts. This phase is uncomfortable because it strips away identity. You no longer know yourself by the roles you played for others. You are no longer the friend who was always available, the helper everyone relied on, the person defined by social presence. You are simply a servant standing before Allah with nothing to hide behind. And this exposure feels frightening at first. But slowly, something extraordinary happens. You start to feel lighter. The pressure to be everything for everyone disappears. The need to explain yourself fades. The fear of missing out dies. You become content with less noise, fewer people, and simpler days. And in that simplicity, your heart begins to breathe again. Allah is teaching you to live without being owned by the world, to exist within it, without being controlled by it. This level of freedom cannot be taught in crowds. It can only be learned in separation. Loneliness also reveals hidden intentions you never knew existed. You may notice traces of pride, impatience, or expectation rising when people leave. And instead of hiding these flaws, Allah exposes them so they can be healed. This is painful because self-discovery often hurts more than external loss. But Allah heals what He reveals. During this stage, worship changes. It becomes less emotional and more stable, less dependent on mood and more rooted in commitment. You pray even when you feel dry. You obey even when you feel tired. You trust even when clarity is missing. This is not beginner faith. This is mature faith. The chosen ones are not those who feel close to Allah all the time. They are those who remain loyal even when feelings fluctuate. Loneliness trains this loyalty. It teaches you to stay connected without constant reassurance. Allah also uses this stage to detach you from outcomes. You stop expecting immediate results. You stop measuring progress by worldly success. You begin understanding that closeness to Allah is not always loud, visible, or dramatic. Sometimes it is quiet endurance. At this level, even loneliness itself transforms. It no longer feels like punishment. It feels like privacy, like Allah has pulled you aside from the crowd and said, "This space is just for you and me." And once you taste this intimacy, the world never fully satisfies you again. This is why chosen ones often feel out of place, even when life improves. Their hearts have already tasted something deeper. Their priorities have shifted permanently. They are no longer chasing what most people chase because Allah has shown them something better. This stage is not meant to last forever, but its effects do. Once your intentions are purified, once your heart is detached, once your trust is solid, Allah may reintroduce people, responsibility, and influence back into your life. But this time, none of it owns you. You own none of it. Everything is held lightly, with awareness. If you are in this phase, do not rush it. Do not try to fill the emptiness with noise. Do not beg for distractions to return. Allah is doing delicate work, work that cannot be undone once completed. Your loneliness is not meaningless. It is washing your heart clean of what does not belong there. And when Allah is finished, you will emerge quieter, stronger, clearer, and freer than before. This is not loss. This is purification. This is preparation for what comes next. Allah uses loneliness to build discipline, self-mastery, and inner authority. At this stage of the journey, loneliness is no longer only about purification or separation. It becomes something far more demanding. It becomes training for responsibility. Allah does not give weight to hearts that cannot carry it, and He does not entrust leadership, influence, or deep wisdom to souls that still depend on ease. This is why, after detaching you from people and the world, Allah begins shaping your discipline in silence. When you walk alone long enough, excuses disappear. There is no one to blame, no one to motivate you, no one to rescue you from inconsistency. You either rise on your own or you remain where you are. And Allah watches how you respond to this freedom, because discipline that survives loneliness is discipline that can be trusted. This is where many people fail. They confuse freedom with rest. They assume that since no one is watching, effort can soften. But Allah did not remove the audience so you could become careless. He removed it so your actions would become intentional. Every prayer, every choice, every sacrifice now comes from inner authority, not external pressure. Loneliness forces you to structure your own life, to regulate your emotions without leaning on others, to wake up, show up, and remain consistent even when motivation is absent. This is where self-mastery is born. You stop reacting to moods, you stop chasing feelings, you begin operating from principles. Allah loves this stage because it reveals sincerity at its highest level. When no one sees your struggle, when no one rewards your patience, when no one notices your restraint, and you still remain upright, Allah knows He is shaping someone rare, someone who will not collapse under responsibility, someone who will not become arrogant when praised or bitter when ignored. Loneliness also teaches you time. You become aware of how easily hours are wasted and how precious focus truly is. Without social noise, distractions lose their grip. You start investing your energy wisely. You protect your routines. You become selective with your thoughts. This is not isolation anymore. This is control. At this stage, Allah strengthens your inner voice. You begin trusting your judgment because it is no longer influenced by constant opinions. You are not pulled in 10 directions by advice, expectations, or emotional attachments. Your decisions slow down, but they become clearer. You listen more. You react less. You move with purpose instead of urgency. This is the level where Allah prepares chosen ones for leadership. Even if that leadership is quiet, leadership of the self comes before leadership of others. Authority over the heart comes before authority in the world. Allah will never elevate someone who cannot govern themselves in solitude. Loneliness also exposes weakness in discipline. You may notice inconsistency rising when comfort disappears. You may struggle with procrastination, doubt, or emotional heaviness. Allah allows this not to shame you, but to train you. Every weakness you confront here becomes strength later. Every failure you correct becomes wisdom. This stage teaches delayed gratification. You learn to wait without frustration, to build without immediate results, to obey without visible reward. This patience reshapes the nervous system of the soul. You become calm under pressure. You become stable in uncertainty. You stop needing life to go perfectly in order to function. The chosen ones are not those who avoid difficulty. They are those who remain disciplined inside difficulty. Allah uses loneliness to test this because there is no hiding here, no shortcuts, no applause to mask weakness, only truth. As this discipline deepens, something powerful happens. Your presence changes. Even in silence you carry weight. Even without speaking, you command respect. Not because you demand it, but because discipline radiates authority. People can sense when someone has mastered themselves. This is why chosen ones often intimidate others without trying. Their calm unsettles chaos. Their restraint exposes excess. Their focus highlights distraction. And Allah ensures this presence is built privately, so it never becomes ego-driven. Loneliness also trains you to stand alone in truth. You stop bending your values to fit rooms. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood, because you have already survived being alone. This fearlessness becomes a shield. Allah is preparing you for moments where you will have to choose what is right over what is popular, what is sincere over what is easy, what is eternal over what is easy, what is eternal over what is immediate. These decisions cannot be made by someone addicted to approval. This is why Allah does not rush this stage. Discipline takes time. Self-mastery takes repetition. Inner authority takes silence. And Allah is patient with those He has chosen. If you are here now, you may feel emotionally neutral, less reactive, less dramatic. You may feel older than your age. You may feel detached, but not empty. This is not numbness. This is control. Allah has taught you how to stand without leaning, how to move without rushing, how to obey without being seen. These qualities are rare, and Allah does not waste rare qualities. This stage is exhausting because growth without validation feels heavy, but it is also empowering because your strength no longer depends on circumstances. You are becoming internally governed. Loneliness has stopped being pain. It has become structure, routine, discipline, clarity. And once Allah sees that you can carry yourself with consistency in silence, He begins preparing the final phase. The phase where solitude turns into purpose, and purpose turns into destiny. This is not the end. This is alignment. Allah makes His chosen ones walk alone because He walks with them Himself. At the highest level of this journey, a truth becomes clear that could not be understood earlier. Loneliness was never about people leaving. It was about Allah drawing closer. Every step of isolation, every season of silence, every moment of feeling unseen was guiding you toward one realization. Allah never intended you to walk with everyone because He intended to walk with you Himself. At this stage, the heart finally stops asking why. The questions fade. The need for explanations dissolves. You no longer search for replacement companionship because something deeper has taken root. The presence of Allah becomes enough. Not emotionally dramatic, not loudly felt, but calmly certain. A quiet knowing settles in your chest that you are not alone, and never were. This is where chosen ones separate completely from the fear of abandonment. You understand now that people leaving was not loss, but alignment. If they had stayed, they would have blocked the intimacy Allah wanted with you. Their absence created space, and Allah filled that space with Himself. This level cannot be reached through comfort. It cannot be taught through ease. It requires the slow stripping away of everything that once stood between you and Allah: friends, noise, identity, expectation, even your own plans, until all that remains is a servant who stands with nothing but trust. Here, faith becomes unshakable because it is no longer dependent on circumstances. You are steady in hardship and humble in ease. You are not intoxicated by success, nor destroyed by loss. Your heart has learned where safety truly comes from, and because of that, nothing can control you anymore. This is the stage where destiny begins to move quietly around you. Doors open without struggle. Guidance arrives without panic. You recognize signs without forcing meaning. You stop chasing outcomes and start responding to direction. Life becomes less noisy but more precise. Allah has been shaping you for this level from the very beginning. Every lonely night trained your patience. Every unanswered message taught you detachment. Every misunderstanding strengthened your resolve. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was random. Everything was deliberate. At this stage, even when people return, they do not replace Allah's position in your heart. You love without clinging. You give without emptying yourself. You connect without losing your center. This balance is rare, and Allah only grants it to those who survived walking alone without becoming bitter. Chosen ones at this level are no longer desperate to be understood. They are content being aligned. They no longer explain themselves to those who cannot see. They no longer chase validation. Their confidence comes from knowing who sees them fully. This is also where responsibility quietly increases. Allah entrusts influence to those who are not controlled by it. He places weight on shoulders that have already learned how to carry silence. Whether that responsibility is leadership, guidance, patience, or endurance, it arrives naturally without chaos. Loneliness has completed its purpose here. It is no longer a test. It is no longer a wound. It becomes a reminder of where your strength was built, a reminder of who stayed when everything else faded. This is why chosen ones move differently. They speak less but carry depth. They react less but see more. They walk calmly because they are not walking alone. Allah is ahead of them, guiding their steps, protecting what they cannot see, delaying what would harm them, and preparing what they cannot yet imagine. If you have reached this stage, you may notice something subtle. Fear has less power over you. Loss no longer terrifies you. Even death feels like a meeting, not an ending. This is not because you are fearless, but because your trust is complete. Allah does not reveal this level quickly. He hides it behind pain, so only the sincere reach it. Many turn back when loneliness hurts. Few continue until loneliness transforms. And those few are the ones Allah chooses for nearness. If you walk this path, understand something clearly. You were never late. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. You were being led, slowly and privately, toward Allah Himself. Walking alone was the path. Allah was the destination. And once a servant reaches Allah, no crowd can add to them, and no absence can take away from them. This is why Allah's chosen ones often walk alone, because they are never truly alone at all. If this message found you in a quiet moment, when your heart already felt heavy, understand this clearly. You were not meant to hear this by accident. Allah places reminders in our path at the exact moment we are ready to receive them. You are not broken because you walk alone. You are not strange because your heart no longer fits in loud places. You are not weak because you feel tired of explaining yourself. These are not flaws. These are signs of refinement. Allah has been guiding you away from noise so He could guide you closer to Him. Every separation protected you. Every lonely night strengthened you. Every unanswered prayer taught you trust instead of control. Do not rush this process. Do not envy those walking in crowds. Many are surrounded yet empty. You were made quiet so you could become full. Hold on to your sincerity. Guard your heart. Stay gentle, even after everything. Allah does not test the hearts He does not love. One day, perhaps sooner than you think, you will look back at this season and realize it was never loneliness. It was Allah teaching you how to stand, how to trust, and how to walk with Him without fear. And when that realization settles in your heart, you will no longer ask why you were chosen to walk alone. You will finally understand that you were never alone at all. Stay patient. Stay sincere. Allah is closer than you think.